Hope you've all had a fantastic holidays. Let's get started. Chapter 4 Kin Pack home. That was what the Old One, the fledgling had learned that his name was Life Crier, called the cave dimpling a rocky hillside deep in the forest. Pack home was where all litterkin, those of the same pack, dwelled. The fledgling had picked up a name among the kin herself. She'd be known as Silverside, Life Crier decided, for her flanks gleamed like the scales of a fish, and like a fish her skin was hard and cold. The name seemed right. "You've killed the Heringa, the sharp thing, and saved Kenai's life," Life Crier reminded the robot in kin speech. Following Kenai's lead, the group from the hunt looped from the cover of the trees and started up the long slope to the cave of Packhome. The moons, Large Face and Small Face as the hunt called them, had spent most of the night chasing one another behind wind-blown clouds. Small Face peeked out from an opening and spilled light down on the pack. "The news will spread quickly," Life Crier continued. "You have status now. Don't bare your throat to any of the kin who weren't on the hunt. You have the right to challenge Kenai for leadership of the hunt, even though you didn't do so. Those at Packhome are all lower than you. Let them know you're sent, but if one of them acts the superior, challenge them." "I won't hurt Litterkin," Silverside said. Already it felt natural to be speaking in their language. She was no longer simply translating from that odd internal vocabulary she'd somehow known from the beginning. "I can't." Life Crier let his tongue loll out between time-dulled teeth in amusement. "Don't worry about that. They'll back down and Kenai has to support you. She owes you a life debt." Silverside had spent the last 4 days of the pack, moving through the forest and resting during the hot, bright days. She had helped them kill, watched them butcher the animals and send the younglings back home when the travois was full. She listened to them, always learning, as they complained about the lack of prey, as they licked wounds, as they groomed each other, as they talked about old fights and old hunts. In the 4 nights Silverside had spent with the wolf creatures, she learned much of the complex language of the pack. It was a blend of body language, of modulated yelps and whines and barks. There were different modes of speech as well. The formal hunt tongue used between different packs or to stress superiority among litterkin, an informal kin speech used in Packhome between friends, the simple beast talk which had no words at all but only the high emotional context of the raw animal. Underlying it all were the strong instincts of the pack carnivore, and the robot was rapidly absorbing that mindset. Already her interpretation of the 3 laws was unlike that of any humanoid post-Ironic intelligence. A robotics engineer would have considered Silverside dangerously unbalanced. One who knew what she'd done to the sharp thing in the forest and watched her behavior for the last several days would have been certain of it. Silverside could already see wolf creatures crowding the opening to the cave, which glowed green in the darkness from phosphorescent moss the kin gathered and used for light. They yelped greetings to the hunt in glad beast talk, and there were happy cries at the sight of the game-dragging hunters behind the remaining carriers. Kenai led the hunt to the cave opening, then sat on her haunches as the rest of the pack spilled out. She began speaking quietly to the 2 of the other kin. There were 10 or more litterkin who came from the cave mouth, and Silverside could hear and smell pups still inside. The ones who stayed in Packhome during the hunt were the nursing mothers, the infirm, and the very young. Some of them were already taking meat from the carriers and moving it inside. Others greeted mates, while the 2 youngest from the hunt basked in the obvious adulation of the immature pups. Silverside noticed the sidewise glances from Kenai and the others, the half-disguised scenting in her direction. She sat alongside Life Crier, just behind Kenai and out of the press of the kin. Kenai glanced back at her with a hard stare. "I've told the hunt about you," she said in hunt tongue, and there was no kindness in her tone at all. I've told him that you are to be treated as litterkin. A place will be made for you in Packhome. Thank you, Silverside replied, a quick bark and a nod of the head. Silverside made her response as cold and formal as Keen Eyes. The hunt leader sniffed at that, nodded, and padded softly into Packhome. Silverside could smell Lifecryer's strange delight at the exchange. She insults you by using the hunt tongue, you know that? She is the leader, Silverside answered. That means I must obey her. She's still waiting for you to challenge her. I can almost taste the fear. Why would I challenge her? You come from the void, Lifecrier said. There was an eager lilt in his ancient tone, and he howled softly in beast talk for a moment. I saw the trail of fire as you fell from the spirit world in the stone egg. You are the old mother's offspring. You were sent to us, and so Keen Eye waits for the spirit of old mother to move you. I do not feel such a spirit inside, Silverside told the old kin. You came from the spirit world, Lifecrier said again, as if that fact answered all objections. I do not know that, Lifecrier. There is no memory of it in me. I knew nothing before I crawled from the egg. I acted as I felt right to act. I saw Keen Eye in the hunt. It seemed important that I take on your shape. That was the spirit of old mother speaking to you. Lifecrier tilted his greying head and gave a short, excited yip. You've come as old mother promised. You're the sign of forgiveness. You're her answer to the walking stones, and that's why Keen Eye is afraid. The walking stones? I do not know the word. What are the walking stones? Lifecrier had no chance to answer the robot's query. Keen Eye came back out into the night and trotted directly toward them. Rather than halting as she approached, she continued so that Silverside and Lifecrier had to give way or be struck. Keen Eye sat exactly where Silverside had been sitting. The hunt must go back out, she said in keen speech. The meat we killed fills barely half the food cave. We wasted time finding the stone egg and Silverside. Silverside said nothing, but Lifecrier gave a short bark of derision. A waste of time that saved your life, she told Keen Eye. You should thank the old mother for sending you such a waste. Keen Eye gave a low, beast-tongue growl as Smallface slid back into cloud cover. Her eyes were bright in the gloom, touched with flecks of green from the phosphorus around the cave mouth. The wind ruffled the long fur around her neck and brought the scent of forest. Had we not gone looking for the egg, perhaps we would not have met the sharping, and I would not have a life debt to Silverside, and only an old litterkin too ancient to sire pup says that old mother sent the egg. That doesn't matter. The hunt has to feed the kin. You know that finding Silverside wasn't the reason the meat was scarce. It's the hail of stars and the walking stones. That's what made the place scarce. That's why old mother sent Silverside to us. Lifecrier was slipping into his hunt tongue, his words and posture becoming more stylized. I, Lifecrier, say this because the old spirit lives in me. I will not let Keen Eye deceive the little kin. Keen Eye snarled, showing her teeth. Do you want to challenge me, old man? Do you want to lead the hunt yourself? Fine, I'm ready. Others of the litterkin were filling the cleared area around the cave mouth, watching silently. Silverside could sense the tension. Her senses were almost hyper-aware, driven by first-law programming that translated as a feeling of uneasiness. She readied herself to move, to come between Lifecrier and Keen Eye if they began to fight. But Lifecrier shook his grizzled head. The old spirit told me that I was to speak the history of old kin, not lead the pack, Keen Eye. That's why I am Lifecrier. I have no interest in challenging you. If you wish, I'll submit now. With that, Lifecrier lifted his head so that the throat was exposed to Keen Eye. For a moment, the tableau held. Keen Eye quivering on the edge of attack, and Silverside ready to intercept the leader's rush. But Keen Eye did nothing. Slowly, Lifecrier let his muscle drop. His demeanor was haughty, knowing he'd won this confrontation. Silverside is the gift of the old mother, he declared loudly so that all the others could hear. The truth of that remains to be seen, Keen-Eye grumbled. Haven't the walking stone taken the lives of kin? Haven't they driven the prey from the forest around them? Haven't we seen pups starve and the mother's milk become thin? Haven't One-Eyes and Scared Paws packs warned us not to enter that territory, knowing how desperate we are? Yes, Keen-Eye admitted, but that says nothing about Silverside. I know the old tales. I'd had them from the old life crier, as he had had them from the one before him on down through the time. The spirit of kin live past leaving me. I know what I know. Again, Life Crier began using the hunt tongue, as if reciting a litany. I saw the fiery egg leave a trail across the void to lead the hunt. When Silverside revealed herself, we could all smell the scent of Litterkin. The old spirit woke in me as I tasted it. Life Crier rose upon his hind legs, pointing with a forepaw over the trees to the west. Look, we have seen the Isle of Stars from back home for 10 dances. Doesn't the sight of it make the fur rise on your back? Silverside looked where the Old One had pointed. Faintly, through the swaying foliage, she could see a triangular shape a long distance away. Its dim bulk was pricked with lights as bright as the stars. She adjusted her vision, bringing the things into sharper focus. Unwinking rectangles of yellow light were set in the dark pyramid of stone. Artifact. There was no translation for that word in the language of kin. Artifact. A vision filled her with a need to know more. The old tales have muddled your head, Keen-Eye was telling Life Crier. The old tales seem too much like now. I say instead, Life Crier answered, and there was a soft rumble of agreement from the kin around them. It is as if Greymane walked again. Silverside tore her attention away from the sight of the hill of stars. Who is Greymane? She asked. At that, Keen-Eye sniffed laughter. So the old mother's supposed offspring doesn't know the old tales, she spat. I know them all too well, and I've little enough time to spend them back home to listen to them again. With a shake of her head, she rose and went into the cave. Most of the kin followed her, but a few remained behind on the ledge. Who is Greymane? Silverside asked again. Life Crier had watched Keen-Eye's departure. Now he turned back to Silverside and nodded. I will tell you, he said formally. Raising his muzzle, he gave a long, mournful howl. Chapter 5. Life Crier's Tale. Listen, O kin, Life Crier began. Gather here and listen. I speak of a time before time. I speak to the spirits that live in you, so they will listen and know that we haven't forgotten them. I speak of the ending days before the great pack splintered. In that long last winter, two kin of the final litter, sister and brother, came to be possessed by their ancestor spirits. Greymane was taken by the spirit of the old mother, may her name be praised. And, with the wisdom of the old mother, she became the first of us to speak the language of the kin. Split Ear, her brother, was taken by the spirit of the first beast, and thus he spoke no language at all. This is the way of things, my kin. Both Greymane and Split Ear wished to rule the great pack. Little kin though they were, no kin were less alike than Greymane and Split Ear. Split Ear was strong and vital. He was the largest and most powerful of the hunting males, and the savage instinct of the first beast rode easily in him. No other of the pack challenged his right to lead the hunt. None except his sister, Greymane. Greymane didn't have Split Ear's hunting skills. Her nose wasn't as keen to follow the scent of the prey. Her eyes weren't as piercing in the darkness under the trees. Her body wasn't as large or as powerful. Instead, his soul was like that of crystalline rock, unbreakable. Greymane's challenge of Split Ear was a horrible struggle, and many in the great pack believed that two would kill each other before one of the two submitted. Their fight on that fateful night lasted from the rising of Small Face to his setting, and their growling could be heard throughout the lost caves of that first pack home. But at last Greymane realized she was outmatched. Her brother must win, and so she bared her throat to him. Splittier howled his triumph to large face, as the strongest had always owled, and Greymane slunk away to lick her terrible wounds. When Splittier led the hunters out, Greymane stayed behind, watching enviously with the pups, the nursing mothers, and the others in the pack too weak to hunt. So it was for 2 dances of the moons. The great pack was a wonder, my kin, even at the end of its time. The hunt was a glorious vision, with thousands of kin flowing like quick grey shadows under the trees. Peckham was a vast network of caves, bigger than the forest in which we live now, and each little mother had her own place within it. The instincts of the spirit pack drove them, and even without the old mother's gift of words, the kin had become most favoured of all creatures. Of all the beasts in the world, there were none more feared. Now listen to me, for we come to the crux. The knights of the one pack were passing quickly. The hunt was failing, even as our hunt fails us now. The kin had become too numerous for the land support. They had preyed too long in the same area. Splittier had to lead the hunt farther and farther from Peckham, and few carriers came back from the hunt, bearing meat for Greymane and the thousands of others. The forest, then, was far more dangerous. Huge sharp fangs, larger and more cunning than the one killed by Silverside, lurked in the tree gloom. In times before, they had left the kin alone, unless they found a straggler from the hunt, or came on a pup wandering in the forest. But now, with the prey animals killed or driven far away, the sharp fangs had only the kin to eat. Maddened by hunger, they hunted the kin as the kin hunted their own food, not caring for their losses. A large group of sharp fangs followed the hunt. During the brightness which the hunters slept, they would attack every day. Without speech, Splittier and the humans couldn't act as kin do now, helping each other and coordinating their defense. By the time the third moon dance was done, Splittier had lost half of the hunt and had to return to pack home. Splittier feared that he'd find there only the bones of the rest of the kin. The spirits in him knew the end had come for the one pack. The time had come for the splintering. During the nights of the long hunt, Greymane had done as the old mother commanded, and taught the kin left at Peckham the gift of speech. The wisdom of the old mother was never more needed. For Split-ear was right. The sharp fangs did rage from the forest to attack Peckham, and Greymane led the kin against them. Armed with words, able to warn each other and arrange the defences, the kin killed several of the beasts and sent the rest fleeing back into the forest. Though their own losses were still grievous, they survived. The kin praised Greymane and the old mother with their new speech. So it was then, when the stragglers of Splittier's hunt returned to Peckham at last. They found not bones broken and licked clean of marrow, but the deads of dead sharp fangs hung on poles as warning. Greymane and the others came out to meet Split-ear. When he saw how few had returned, they howled their lament to the moons. "How could this have happened?" Greymane asked Split-ear. Split-ear could smell the pride in Greymane, for she had defended Peckham well and knew it. But Split-ear couldn't understand the words Greymane spoke, and so could not reply. Now, as all kin know, Old Mother and First Beast have always been at odds, even in the void. First Beast roused the jealousy in Split-ear, so he believed Greymane was challenging once more. With a terrible growling he threatened Greymane. She cowered back. "There is no challenge here, Split-ear," she told him. "I beg of you, little kin, let us become friends. Let me teach you the old mother's speech so we can plan for the good of the pack." The spirit of First Beast made Split-ear angrier yet, and he rushed at his sister. She bared her neck immediately to him, but First Beast's rage made Split-ear brutal, and he ripped the throat from her. The earth drank Grey Mane's blood as the spirit of Old Mother wailed. All kin accursed! Old Mother cried as her spirit fled from Grey Mane. Her fearsome shape hung before the cowering kin, blackening the sky, and her eyes like fire burned them. A raging wind howled and shrieked around her, and dark thunder clouds were her fur. The one pack will now be scattered and diminished. You have thrown away my gift like dumb animals. Now I throw away my protection. You shall howl like the stupid animals you are, and not understand one another. Before any kin remembers my gift again, 1,000 great dances will pass. I will teach others who will listen before you. I tell you, the kin will hear stones speaking before I forgive you. The old spirit heard Old Mother's curse, and thus it came to be. Those of the kin who had learned to speak were afraid of Splitter's anger and so remained silent. Splitter would not lead the kin away from back home. The hunt returned to the forest, but found little food, and the sharp fangs returned. Splitter himself was killed in one such attack, and back home was overrun. The beasts cracked the bones of kin and licked them clean. Those who survived fled into the woods. Like animals they ran, splitting into small packs of litterkin. So it was that the time of the one pack came to an end. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I also hope that you could still understand that last chapter. Because, yeah. Anyway, welcome to 2022. I hope you're all having a fantastic time so far. And that's about it. See you Tuesday. Bye.